one of my favorite people to work with in the world is standing by and ready to talk about the death of the Super League. My friend, Robbie Earle from NBC Sports, our Premier League coverage. Robbie, good to see your smiling face. Robbie, you and I shared a studio together when the news was breaking. We heard in our ears, we're like, Adam told us, he said, hey, this seems kind of big. This seems like this could be a thing. Take us back there and your thoughts when you were hearing of this Super League becoming a reality.
Let me tell you when I knew we were in for a big day, when Adam said in our ear, rip up the running order. It's a blank page. We start from here. And every 5 minutes, the picture was changing. It was a fluid situation. Just to maybe explain, obviously, you know, but maybe some of our viewers, in terms of where football stands in the UK. I mean, it is the game. It's football, and everything else in terms of sport comes a very big second. It's NFL, it's NBA, it's NHL, it's Major League Baseball, all rolled into one. So when the thought of 6 team owners at the 6 biggest clubs were going to take their group and create a European Super League, which basically meant it was a boys-only club where there was no promotion and relegation. They'd invite 3 or 4 teams in a year to come and play with us, but basically it was their league, they were going to run it, and the rest of English football was in jeopardy. The rest of English football is the Premier League that everybody knows, but there's a pyramid below that, Ahmed, that goes through thousands of people, through thousands of teams. And basically the Premier League clubs that move away are almost spelling the death knell to those teams. And so this was huge. It was seismic in football. It's one of those huge days in football. And Tuesday, the 20th of April, 2021, was the day when English football said, you're not taking it. You may be the wealthy owners of 6 clubs, but this is our game and we're grabbing the game back. And fans went out and government got involved and the royal family got involved and players and coaches and managers. And it was very obvious that the 6 ownership groups had not taken into consideration the temperature of what this would do to English football. And very quickly, we call them the dirty dozen, the 12 teams, 6 from England, 3 from Spain and 3 from Italy, who were going to go together and form this European Super League. Very quickly, one by one, they started to fall out. And it was a huge day for English football and a huge day to show where the power of the fans stands.
Yeah, I explain it to people. I use the analogy, Robbie, of like college basketball. And you have right now some blue blood teams like Kentucky, Kansas, you got Michigan State, Duke, North Carolina. It'd be like if they all were in their conferences still competing for ACC Big Ten titles. But instead of going to the NCAA tournament anymore, which is the Champions League, they just said, we're not doing that anymore. We're making our own tournament. We're going to be in it every year, and we'll let in 3 other Cinderella teams. And that would not have flown here. This did not fly over in Europe. So what was your biggest fear if this had gone through, Robbie? Was it possible that everything we know about football and everything that people in England know and love about it would have gone away?
I'll give you my personal view first. The dream I had at 7 or 8 years of age, when people would say to me, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd say a footballer. And they'd tap me on my head and say, oh, that's really nice. That dream would have been gone for every kid in the UK. There would be no way that the structures and the platforms would be in place, that I could go from an academy to a young professional team, to get to Premier League, to play international football. That would have been gone because 6 owners wanted to take all that's good about English football and create this European Super League. Beyond that, every league below the Premier League, and in England, there's many leagues, like minor leagues, maybe in the US, that rely on money that's trickled down. Basically, these clubs going away takes that trickle down with them. So the Premier League would be different. These clubs would maybe still want to play in the Premier League, but that wouldn't have been their main aim because they're already going into their super competition. They don't have to finish top 4. So the Premier League, they could play average teams in the Premier League and save all their big guns, all their big players for the Super League. So the Premier League would be different. There'd be the relegation and promotion, the opportunity for teams like Bournemouth to come from the lowest league in English football and hold their own in the Premier League. There'd be no Leicester Cities, who were one season in the 3rd tier of English football. Some 6-7 years later, going on to win the Premier League. I mean, those dreams, those stories, that drama that is a Premier League would have been no more.
One of the big storylines, Robbie, was people were saying that this was the Americanization, or at least that was the attempt of the game in England and Europe, because you had American owners of some of these big clubs that were a big part of creating the Super League. Do you think that we'll ever see another American owner be able to come in, take control of one of these big clubs again in England, or is there going to be a lot of reticence?
It's a really interesting point. And the Americanism is, I thought, not totally true, because these things about a European breakaway have been going on for 15 or 20 years. There's always been a thought that at some point, those big clubs playing on a regular basis should be what happens. Now, that is generally at the moment the Champions League. And there is no doubt what's happened in the game and these 6 clubs trying to pull away is wakened everybody up to saying, we need to look at the structure of football. We need to look that we can get, the big clubs should be able to play at times and maybe earn a little bit more money because they are the big clubs. They're the driver. But they also need the little clubs as well. They need the Premier League, and they should be part of that. I think what will change, and you're right, is I think there'll be rules and regulations in terms of ownership of football clubs. I don't think we'll ever get back to this stage where one single owner will have the ability to take a club into a league or into another continent or another region that's not beneficial, that's not that anybody else within that league cannot have a say over. They do it in Germany. It's a 50+1 there, where I think the fans have some ownership in a club where the fans have a say. I wouldn't be surprised if some form of that is replicated in England, because the fans have spoken on this, and they certainly deserve a say.
So Real Madrid's president, Florentino Perez, has come out and said the Super League is on standby, which is what happens when everyone drops out of it. You got to put it on standby. But he's still, Robbie, blasted the current Champions League system as, he said, his words, obsolete, said there's waning support from young people. Things need to change. So this is not going to happen in its form. No. Do you think there's still a possibility that something maybe like this with other considerations, is there still change possible in European football?
Yes, and there should be. I don't particularly agree with all that he said, but I do feel that the structure of the Champions League can be looked at, as long as the Leicester Cities of the world who win the Premier League go into that competition with every chance of winning that as well. As long as there's the ability that it's not a closed shop, where there's not founder members, where there's not being run by the people with the big money, then I believe there is room for conversation. And what pleases me out of what come out of Tuesday when the teams started to fall away is that when those teams sit around the table now, it's a whole different conversation. At one time, they sat around the table as if to say, yes, you're in our company, but we're really the big boys. We'll tell you what's happening. Now I think it's taken a little bit away from them, and they have to come to the table, not cap in hand, but certainly on a more level basis, and have a discussion that's for the better of football as well as the better of these 6 clubs.
All right, so if we're talking about perhaps some changes down the road, my last one here, Robbie.
Okay.
Would there ever be a Premier League team in America? Could that ever work where an American team, say in New York, could get a team together and become part of the English football pyramid?
I think not. I think what we saw in terms of numbers and fans and people, it was always rumoured back in England, sort of the early days of the Premier League, about maybe playing one Premier League game overseas. And the kind of scenes we saw when 6 owners thought they could take the league away would be a similar thing. English football is very proud of what it does and how it does and how it markets it and how it sells it. And I think teams coming over and playing, tournament games and friendly games and things in the summer's fine. But in terms of the Premier League and where it's played, I think we will generally see it played on UK shores.
Immediately shot down my dream, just like that.
Sorry, my friend.
Robbie Earle.
The other way is we have to travel over to England to go and watch games and report on games.
That's true,
and that
too.
way we can always have a good pint of English beer.
Oh, Robbie, always great working with you. Your insights are awesome. Thanks for joining us. All right, we'll see you.
Thanks,
we'll see you soon.
Have a good day. Enjoy.